I wasn't on the guest list, not in gold calligraphy, not in pencil, not even as a maybe. I found out my parents were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary from a photo my cousin posted on Instagram. My mother was standing beneath a banner that read 50 years of love, champagne glass raised, tears in her eyes. My father had his arm around her waist, beaming like I hadn't seen him beam in years. My sister Paige was front and center in a blush pink gown, holding a microphone, clearly mid-toast. There were flowers everywhere. There was a live band. There were 63 people in that ballroom, and I recognized almost every single one of them. Aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors, co-workers. Everyone was there. Everyone except me. No one called. No one texted. No one asked if I was coming, if I needed a ride, if I had a dress. I had paid off their mortgage 3 years ago when my father's hardware store went under. I had covered my mother's hip replacement surgery when insurance refused. I had driven 8 hours from Denver to Kansas City every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every Easter, carrying wine and flowers and hope. But on the night they celebrated half a century together, I was not even a whisper in the room. So I did what they never expected. I stopped waiting to be chosen. I said yes to the man who had spent 2 years proving I was worth more than my family ever gave me. We flew to Italy, just us. No guilt, no explanations, no apologies. I wore a white linen dress on the Amalfi Coast and let the Mediterranean sun remind me what warmth actually felt like. I posted one photo from the terrace of our villa in Positano, the sea shimmering behind me, my hand resting on Daniel's chest. No faces, no tags, just a caption. Some celebrations don't require an invitation. 4 days later, my sister called me sobbing. The anniversary party had turned into a disaster. Her lies had unraveled in front of everyone. Her future mother-in-law had pulled funding for her wedding. And somehow, impossibly, all eyes had turned to me. The daughter who wasn't even there. The one they forgot existed. But this isn't a story about revenge. It's about finally understanding that you can't keep setting yourself on fire to keep other people warm. My name is Elise Harmon, and this is the story of how they tried to erase me, and I rewrote myself instead. I was 7 years old the first time I realized my mother saw right through me. It was a Saturday afternoon in Lawrence, Kansas, and Paige had scraped her knee on the driveway. She was 4, screaming like the world was ending, and my mother rushed outside with bandages and kisses and that voice she only ever used for Paige. Soft, tender, present. I was standing in the kitchen doorway holding a certificate. First place in the school spelling bee. I had practiced for weeks, staying up past my bedtime with flashcards, whispering words into the dark. I wanted her to see it. I wanted her to say she was proud. But she didn't even glance my way. All she said was, "Ellie, get your sister some juice, would you? She's had a rough day." That's how it always started. Small erasures, quiet replacements. Paige's dance recitals got standing ovations and dinner at her favorite restaurant. My science fair projects got a nod and a, "That's nice, honey." My father tried, in his own quiet way. He'd ruffle my hair sometimes or slip me an extra $5 when no one was looking. But he never spoke up. He never said, "What about Elise?" He just let my mother run the show and pretended not to notice when I disappeared into the background. By the time I hit high school, I stopped expecting anything different. I learned how to be invisible. I got scholarships on my own. I filled out my own college applications. I worked part-time at a coffee shop to pay for my textbooks, while Paige got a car for her 16th birthday and a trip to Florida for graduation. I went to the University of Colorado. Paige stayed home and went to the local community college for 2 semesters before dropping out to find herself. Our parents paid her rent for 3 years while she bounced between jobs and boyfriends. I graduated with honors, moved to Denver, and built a career in interior design. I landed clients. I got featured in a local magazine. I bought my own condo. And every time I came home, my mother would spend the entire visit asking about Paige. "How's Paige doing? Did you hear Paige got a new job? Paige is seeing someone nice. Isn't that wonderful?" I kept showing up. I kept hoping something would change. It never did. Then came my 30th birthday. I hadn't planned anything big. I wasn't the type. But I took the day off. made a reservation at a nice restaurant downtown, and invited my parents to fly out for the weekend. I even offered to pay for their tickets. My mother sounded distracted on the phone. "Oh, honey, that's sweet, but you know how your father gets about flying. Maybe next year." I told her I understood. I didn't. That night, I sat alone at the restaurant, pretending I wasn't waiting for anyone. I ordered a glass of wine and scrolled through my phone out of habit. And that's when I saw it. A photo on Paige's Instagram. She was at some rooftop bar in Kansas City, surrounded by friends, holding a sign that said 30 and thriving. The caption read, "Surprise party for the birthday girl. Love my people." I stared at the screen for a long time. Her birthday was 3 months away. I realized, slowly, that the party wasn't for her. It was for someone else, someone they had remembered. I texted my mother. Saw Paige's post. "Looks like a fun party." No reply. I finished my wine alone and walked home through streets I didn't recognize anymore. That was the night I stopped making excuses for them. I didn't cry. I didn't call. I just let the silence sit. And in that silence, something inside me shifted. The next morning, I woke up early and checked my email. Work things, client approvals. A message from Daniel asking if I wanted to grab dinner that week. I said yes without thinking about it. I hadn't seen him in 2 weeks. He'd been traveling for a project in Austin, some high-rise development his firm was leading. We'd been dating for almost a year, but I still kept him at arm's length. I wasn't sure I knew how to do anything else. That evening, we met at a small Italian place near Union Station. He was already there when I arrived, scrolling through his phone, jacket draped over the chair beside him. When he looked up and smiled, something in my chest loosened. "You look tired," he said. Not accusatory, just honest. "I am. Want to talk about it?" I didn't. Not really. But I told him anyway. About the birthday. About my parents. About the photo. About feeling like a ghost in my own family. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he reached across the table and took my hand. "You deserve better than people who only remember you when they need something." "I know. Do you?" I didn't answer. Later that night, back at my condo, I opened Instagram again. Bad habit. I wasn't looking for anything specific, but there it was. A photo from my Aunt Linda. My parents were standing in what looked like a hotel lobby, dressed up, smiling. Behind them was a sign. "Richard and Carol, 50 years of love." My stomach dropped. I scrolled. More photos. My mother in a silver gown. My father in a tuxedo I'd never seen before. Paige giving a speech, microphone in hand, tears streaming down her face. The venue was beautiful. Chandeliers, flowers, a string quartet in the corner. No one had told me. I texted my mother. "When was this?" The bubbles appeared, then disappeared. No reply. I texted Paige. "Congratulations on the speech. Looked beautiful. Read." No response. I sat on my couch for an hour, not moving, not crying, just staring at the ceiling. 63 people. I had counted them in the photos. 63 people had shown up to celebrate my parents' marriage. And I, the daughter who had paid off their house, who had covered their medical bills, who had never once missed a holiday I hadn't even been told it was happening. The next morning, Daniel called. "I saw the photos," he said. "Your aunt tagged your parents." "I know. Are you okay?" "I don't know." There was a pause. Then he said, "Pack a bag." "What?" "I'm serious. Pack a bag. I'll pick you up in 2 hours." "Daniel, trust me." I did. I don't know why, but I did. He showed up at noon with 2 plane tickets and a grin that made me forget how angry I was. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Positano." "I was saving it for your birthday, but I think you need it now." I blinked. "Italy? You've never been. And you deserve to see something beautiful that has nothing to do with them." I didn't argue. I just got in the car. 16 hours later, we landed in Naples and drove along the winding coastal roads until the cliffs opened up and there it was. Positano. Pastel buildings tumbling down to the sea, bougainvillea spilling over every terrace, the kind of beauty that made you forget the world had ever been unkind. Our villa was perched on the hillside, white walls and terracotta tiles, with a private terrace that overlooked the Mediterranean. I stood at the railing that first evening and let the wind lift my hair. For the first time in weeks, I breathed. Daniel came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "You don't have to carry them anymore," he said quietly. "You know that, right?" I nodded, but I wasn't sure I believed it yet. On our third morning in Positano, I woke up before Daniel. I made coffee on the little stovetop in the kitchen and carried it out to the terrace. The sea was impossibly blue, the sun warm on my face. I checked my phone out of habit. No messages from my family. No apologies, no explanations, just silence. I opened my camera and took a photo. Me in a white linen dress, the coastline behind me, my face half turned toward the light. I posted it without thinking. The caption came easily. "Some celebrations don't require an invitation." I didn't tag anyone. I didn't mention the anniversary. I just let the photo speak for itself. Within an hour, my notifications exploded. Likes, comments, messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. My cousin Rachel sent a text. "Wait, you weren't at the party? I thought you were sick or something. No one said you weren't invited." My Aunt Linda messaged. "Ellie, honey, I had no idea. I just assumed you couldn't make it. Are you okay?" I didn't respond to any of them. But then came the message that changed everything. It was from someone named Charlotte Whitmore. I didn't recognize the name, but her profile said she worked at a PR firm in Kansas City. Her message was brief. "Hi, Elise. I think you should know that your photo is making rounds in certain circles. Brett Calloway's mother saw it and started asking questions. Thought you'd want a heads up. Brett Calloway, Paige's boyfriend, the one from the wealthy family in Missouri, the one whose mother, Victoria Calloway, owned half the commercial real estate in the Midwest." I showed Daniel the message. He raised an eyebrow. "Looks like someone's paying attention." I didn't mean to start anything. "You didn't. You just lived your life. That's not a crime." But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Victoria Calloway wasn't the type to let questions go unanswered, and Paige had always been better at building stories than living in truth. 3 days later, my cousin Marcus called. "Ellie, what the hell is going on?" "What do you mean?" "Paige is freaking out. Apparently, Victoria Calloway hired someone to look into your family. She found out Paige lied about her degree. She told everyone she graduated from Mizzou, but she dropped out after 1 semester. She's been pretending for years." I felt something cold settle in my chest. I didn't know that. Neither did anyone else. But now Victoria's asking why the successful daughter wasn't invited to the anniversary party while the dropout gave the speech. "It doesn't look good, Ellie. It looks like they hid you on purpose." "They did hide me." "I know. I'm sorry. I should have said something." "Yeah, you should have." I hung up and walked to the terrace. The sea was calm, indifferent, beautiful. I watched the waves for a long time. Victoria Calloway didn't waste time. Within 48 hours, she had compiled a folder on my family thicker than anything Paige had ever written in her life. Education records, employment history, financial discrepancies, a timeline of every lie Paige had told to make herself seem more impressive. The first call Victoria made wasn't to Paige. It was to her son. "I need you to come to the house tonight," she said. "We need to talk." Brett arrived at 7, confused but obedient. Victoria was waiting in the conservatory with a glass of wine and a folder she hadn't opened yet. "Tell me about Paige's family," she said. "What do you mean?" "Her sister, the one in Italy. What do you know about her?" Brett shifted in his seat. "Elise? Paige said they're not close, some falling out years ago. Did she tell you Elise paid off their parents' mortgage? That she covered their medical bills? That she has a successful career as an interior designer in Denver?" Brett blinked. "No." Victoria opened the folder. "Paige told me she graduated from Mizzou with a communications degree. She didn't. She dropped out after 1 semester. She told me she worked at a marketing firm in Kansas City for 3 years. She didn't. She was a receptionist for 8 months before getting fired." "Mom, I'm not finished." She told me her family was close-knit and supportive. Yet her own sister wasn't invited to her parents' 50th anniversary. A sister who, by all accounts, has done more for that family than anyone else. Brett stared at the papers in front of him. Why would she lie about all of this? Because she wanted to be someone she's not, and she thought I wouldn't find out. What do you want me to do? Victoria closed the folder. I want you to think very carefully about who you're about to marry. Brett left an hour later, folder in hand. He didn't sleep that night. Neither did Paige. The next morning, Victoria pulled the funding for the wedding. I found out through a text from Marcus. It's done. Victoria canceled everything. The venue, the catering, the flowers. Paige is devastated. I read the message 3 times. Daniel looked up from his coffee. News? Victoria pulled the plug. How do you feel? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't feel anything, I said. And I think that's the point. The wedding was supposed to be in 6 weeks. Now it was nothing but a cancelled contract and a closet full of unused decorations. Paige called me that night. I was sitting on the terrace, watching the sun sink into the sea, when her name lit up my screen. I almost didn't answer, almost let it ring into silence, but something made me pick up. Why did you do this? Her voice was raw, cracked, desperate. Do what? The photo. The caption. You knew it would get back to them. You knew Victoria would see it. I didn't know anything. I was on vacation. You ruined my wedding. I wasn't even invited to your wedding, Paige. I wasn't invited to our parents' anniversary. I've been erased from this family for years, and now you're upset because people finally noticed? Silence. Paige, you lied to everyone. About your degree, about your job, about me. You built a whole fake life to impress people who were always going to find out the truth eventually. That's not my fault. That's yours. I heard her breath hitch. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Then maybe you shouldn't have lied. I didn't know what else to do. You've always been the successful one, the one who got out. I just wanted something that was mine, and you got it by pretending I didn't exist. She didn't respond. I looked at the sea, at the fading light, at the world that had nothing to do with Kansas or Kansas City or the family I had spent 30 years trying to please. I'm not coming back to fix this, I said. I'm not covering for you. I'm not paying for anything. I'm done being the person who holds everything together while you stand in the spotlight. So you're just going to let it all fall apart? I'm going to let you deal with the consequences of your own choices. That's different. She was crying now. I could hear it. Do you hate me? No. I don't hate you, but I don't owe you anything either. Not anymore. The call ended. I turned off my phone and watched the stars come out. We stayed in Positano for 2 more days. Daniel and I didn't talk about my family. We talked about architecture and food and the book I was reading. We talked about the future. On our last night, standing on the terrace with a glass of wine in my hand, he turned to me and said, I want to build something with you. Something real. I looked at him. Like what? Like a life. A home. Something that doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, feeling the weight of everything I had carried for so long start to lift. Okay, I said finally. Let's build something. When I got back to Denver, everything looked different. The same streets, the same coffee shops, the same skyline, but none of it felt like a trap anymore. It felt like a choice. I signed a lease on a new studio space downtown. I reached out to old clients. I started taking on projects I actually cared about. I stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes to see if my mother had finally texted. She didn't. And eventually, I stopped waiting. 3 months later, I got a message from my Aunt Linda. Paige had called off the engagement. Brett's family had cut ties completely. My parents were pretending nothing had happened, which was exactly what I expected. A week after that, Paige sent me a photo. It was a sonogram. The message underneath said, I know I don't deserve it, but I hope one day you'll meet your niece. I stared at the image for a long time. The tiny blur of a heartbeat, the ghost of something new. I didn't respond. Not out of anger, not out of spite, but because I had finally learned that not every door needs to be reopened. Some endings aren't tragedies, they're choices, they're freedom. I deleted the message and put my phone down. Outside my window, Denver was coming alive. Traffic, sunlight, the distant sound of construction. I poured myself a coffee and opened my laptop. I had a client call in 20 minutes and a site visit after lunch. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone to remember me. I was too busy remembering myself. If you're listening to this, and you know what it feels like to be the forgotten one, the overlooked one, the name left off the list, I want you to know something. You are not invisible. You are not small. And you are not required to keep showing up for people who refuse to see you. If someone chose to erase you from their story, maybe it's time to write your own. The comeback doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's just a woman standing on a cliff in Italy, realizing she was never the problem. Sometimes it's choosing peace over proof. Sometimes it's deleting a message and walking away. And that choice? That's everything.